This is going to be a rather in-depth tutorial on how to calculate soil type acres of a riparian strip. Our assessors have had to do quite a bit of this lately, and I'm going to go in and show them a few tips on how to get this information and use it to help in their assessments. When you're looking at my project right now, you can see that I've created one. It's rather minimal. The few data layers that you are going to want to start with are your parcels and your soils. These are vital for this exercise. As you can see, we've also got some road center lines, our section information. I have that shut off, and we also have some really nice aerial photography from pictometry. But the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add this buffer wizard right here. If that's not on your toolbar, that's okay. I'll show you how to do that. All you need to do is navigate to an open area of your toolbars up on top, someplace like right here, and double click. And that's going to allow you to customize this toolbar. We're going to click the Commands tab, and in this area where it says Show Commands Containing, we're just going to type buffer. And when you type that up, these are all of the different toolbars that are out there that contain some variation of the word buffer. We're going to go down to the Tools, and you can see right here is the buffer wizard. This is the one we want. So you'll click and grab this and hold it and drag it up onto your toolbar somewhere. Any place in here, it will allow you to add it on to your interface. So we can put that up here. You can see, and it'll show up just fine. I've already got mine up here already, so I'm going to drag this off and get rid of it. But if you don't have it on yours, you'll need to find a place for it. Once you do that, hit close, and now your buffer wizard will be up there for when we need it. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to open up our catalog, which looks like this little button right here. Find that on your toolbar and click it, and it's going to open up your catalog over here on the right side. There'll also be a tab here that will leave it open for you if you need it in the future. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to a place that we want to store our data. We're going to create a new file geodatabase. Mine is going to be under County Master Moody because I'm working in Moody County right now. If you don't have any folder connections up, you just use this Connect to Folder button and navigate to this BC and go to your hard drive that has all of your information on it, and you can navigate to it and click the one that you want and just hit OK, and that will give you a folder if you need one. I have one already, so I'm not going to add a new one, but like I say, I'm going to County Master Moody, and I'm going to right click on Moody and move down to New File Geodatabase. We want to create a new file geodatabase for this. That way we'll be editing in this new file geodatabase, and we won't be making any changes to our existing data. So I'm just going to call this Riparian Strips. That's what my file geodatabase is going to be called. From here, we'll right click on this and scroll to New Feature Dataset, and we'll give it a relatively simple name called Datasets. Click Next on this, and it is going to ask us for our coordinate system. You can use whatever coordinate system you feel comfortable with. The one that we're going to be using is State Plane NAD 83 US feet, South Dakota North 5th Zone 4001. I have this set as my favorites because this is my home zone. This is what I use most of the time. But if you don't have one set to your favorites and you have to look for it, you're going to need to go under Projected Coordinate Systems, State Plane. You're going to need to scroll down until you find NAD 83 US feet. Double click that to open up that folder. And then these are in alphabetical order, so you scroll all the way down to South Dakota. And in South Dakota there are two. There's a South Dakota N, FIP Zone 4001, and as South Dakota South, FIP Zone 4002. I use FIP Zone 4001. And you'll just hit next. We're not going to worry about a vertical coordinate system. Hit next again and finish. And now we have our Riparian strips geodatabase created, and we also have a feature data set where we can put our information in. The last step that we're going to need to do is right click in your data sets, go up to new again, and click feature class. You need to do this if you do not have a very accurate streams centerline data set. If you have some excellent streams, you can use that instead. But if you don't, then you'll need to create one. And I think this is what you're going to have to do in South Dakota, as the state hasn't provided us a good streams data set to use. So you're on your own. I'm just going to call this one Riparian lines. And I don't like to use spaces when I do this stuff. So it's just Riparian, and I capital the L in lines to distinguish it. And that's how I do most of my naming. We'll want to change this to line features. Just click next and finish. And that will automatically add your lines to your project. Here's my Riparian lines. I'm going to change the symbology. I'm going to make it a width of 2. And I really want it to pop, so I'm going to use solar yellow. These steps that we've just done don't need to be repeated every time you do a Riparian strip buffer area. This is only for the initial startup. You just need to create a new geodatabase, and you want lines. You can use these over and over again in your activities. If you have 20 Riparian buffer strips that you need to create, you can use the Riparian strips in the data sets folders for those, and you can use the Riparian lines over and over again as well. But once you have this done, this is the initial housekeeping that we needed to do to get things set up. Now we can actually get into creating the data that you need. So in this particular instance, I am going to use this parcel right here as my demo. We'll zoom in a little tight onto the parcel, and you can even zoom in a little tighter into the area. I'm going to digitize the center line of this stream right here to start with, and we're going to calculate the acres of a Riparian buffer strip in this area here. The first thing that you will do is you will right click on Riparian lines, scroll down to edit features, and start editing. Once you do that, you'll go up to your editor bar, and you will click the create features. As you can see, the create features also shows up on the side here. If you don't see it on the side tab, then you just scroll to this button right here, and it will open it up. And from here on out, I believe this will be on the right side of your screen. But we'll click on Riparian lines, and there's a couple different ways that you can edit your line to make sure it's right in the center. You can either eyeball it like this, using this just straight segment, and you can navigate through. And one of the things that I strongly recommend you do is start well outside of your target area, which is this area inside the parcel. You want to start well outside of it, draw all the way through, and finish well outside on the other side of your parcel. So once that's done, you can right click and scroll down to finish sketch. And there's your line, which is relatively close. Another way that you can do this, if you're trying to be more accurate, I'll delete this using the delete button because it's selected, is when you're editing under create features, Riparian lines, these buttons will all show up. Now what you can do is this: you can click on the little down arrow, and it gives you a wide variety of drawing tools here. This one is called midpoint, and what this one does is it creates a point at the midpoint of your line. So if I click on the left side or maybe the top side of the bank, and then maneuver over to the bottom side of the bank, it puts a dot right in the middle. And if I continue to do that, it will draw a line right in the middle of my of my stream, whatever I'm trying to draw, a midpoint for. This is a handy little tool to use. If you're, especially in a situation like this where I'm trying to draw the midpoint, I'm trying to get it right in the middle, but it's tough to eyeball. You can keep doing this because I'm seeing it looks like there's a little here. And you know what you can do if you don't like where that spot is, you can go back. Maybe you can draw it up here a little bit. Just click the midpoint. You can go up here, the midpoint, and come over here. Like this. Draw it in to where you need it to be, and then you can either right click and go down to finish sketch. I actually have the finish sketch button up here on my toolbar as well, but right click finish sketch worked just fine. Now we have our line drawn, and we'll save our edits. You can do your edits. I have this on my toolbar as save edits. You can go under editor, and save edits is right there as well. Once we have our line drawn in, this is where the buffer wizard comes in, because we want to buffer the center of our line. So we will go up to where our buffer wizard is, where we put it, and we'll click on it, and it's going to open up the buffer wizard. Now, which do you want to buffer? The features of a layer. We want to buffer our riparian lines, and usually use only the selected features is checked, and that works out just fine for us because we have this one drawn in and it's still selected. So we kind of want to do that anyway. We'd like to make sure that that line is selected because we don't want to create a buffer. If we have 50 riparian lines in here, we only want to buffer the one that we're working on. So make sure that we're using only the selected features. Now we click next. We'll create this buffer at a specified distance. In this case, I have 120 feet in there. That sounds good. Whatever the distance of your riparian buffer, that's what you want to use. So type in whatever distance you're using. If it's 50 feet, if it's 100 feet, just enter that in here. Use next. Is all varies between? Sure, that's fine. The one that you want to really focus on is where do you want the buffers to be saved? I think every time we do this, we're going to save it in a new layer. So in a new layer, specify the output shapefile or feature class. Well, they have this in here as my default geodatabase. But what we want to do is we want to navigate back to that default file geodatabase that we created. And we created that, if you remember, under County Master in Moody. And we'll scroll down, and right now it's a save as type shapefile. We want to change that to file and personnel geodatabase. And then you can see that our riparian strip shows up. So we'll double click in here, and we'll double click in our data sets. And we will just call this riparian buffer 01. I like to number these, especially if you know that you're going to be creating 10 of these. You'll want to find a way to delineate between the different buffers. So we have this in, and we'll click finish. Oh, that's my fault. It cannot create this in an editable database. So what we need to do, that was my fault. We'll just go up to the editor. We'll stop editing. And then we'll repeat this process quickly. Buffer, riparian lines, 120 feet. Oh wait, let's go back. And let's cancel, and let's go to riparian lines and go down to selection. Make this the only selectable layer, and then we'll select it. And now we'll do our buffer again. Riparian lines, choosing only the selected features. Distance of 120. Just another thing to keep in mind there, if things get set up a little weird, buffer distance units, if it isn't set to feet by default, this is how you set it. It's right there. Sometimes that'll go to miles or inches or what have you. Whatever the previous person was using, that's what it will be. So we'll leave that at 120 feet. Next. This is all very sure. We're creating a new layer, so let's navigate back to where we were. County Master Moody Riparian Strips data sets. I'll give it a name. Riparian Buffer 01. Save and finish. And there we go. This has just created a riparian buffer. Now, this is a first start, and that's great. But as you can see, obviously, our buffer goes well beyond where our parcel is. There's a relatively quick way to fix that. What we'll do is we'll go up to the riparian buffer and we'll go to edit features, start editing again. And then what we're going to do is under parcels, we're going to go down to selection, make this the only selectable layer, and we'll select our parcel that we are creating the riparian buffer for. Under editor, there is a clip option, and what this is going to do is it's going to clip all the visible layers to the parcel boundary. So if we click this, it'll say buffer distance, preserve the area that intersects, discard the area that intersects. We want to preserve the area that actually intersects. The area that actually intersects is right here. The area we're going to discard is these two areas outside of here. We hit OK, and now this is the area in question. Now, an important thing to note, when you do this, it is going to clip all of the features that you have visible. So if you've got your soils on, it's going to clip those too, and you don't want to do that. So, well, actually, no, it won't. It will only clip those that are actually editable. And in this case, because we're only editing in the riparian buffer geodatabase, this is the only one that it will clip, so you're safe there. Just something to be of note. If your soils are in that same database, it'll clip those too, and you don't want to do that. So once we have that clipped, we're good. And I'm going to go editor, stop editing, and save my edits. So what we have is our buffer area. It's right there. This is great. And we have our parcels and we have our soils. So we'll turn our soils on, and you can see, especially if I turn my riparian buffer off, there's not a lot of soils to be clipped here. We're going to get a little bit of DAA and mostly CH on this, but that's okay. This is just our tutorial anyway. So we'll turn our riparian buffer strips on. The next thing that you're going to want to do is perform what is called an intersect. And we do an intersect by scrolling up to our Arc toolbox. And that is right here. It looks like a little red toolbox. You click on that and this is going to show up. And how it defaults, it just kind of looks like this. There's a whole bunch of different geoprocessing tools that we can use. What we want to do is we want to scroll to analysis, and we want to go to overlay. And we want to do what is called an intersect. So we'll double click the intersect, and we are going to essentially intersect our parcels, our soils, and our riparian buffer. These three things. So we add each of them. Input feature, the first one we'll do is parcels. That shows up in here. We're going to add a second one, our riparian buffer 01, and we're going to do our soils. And this is going to tell us where the output feature class is. We want to put this right back in our riparian data set. So here's our riparian strip data sets. We're going to put it right there. You can see we have some stuff in there, and that's what we want to see. So now I'm just going to call this riparian soils 01. And this is going to intersect soils, parcels, and our riparian strip. We hit save on this, and we hit OK. As you can see, this little box shows up and tells us when this geoprocessing service is done. And we'll close this. And it's right here. Riparian soils 1 shows up in purple in my project. What we can do now is we'll open the attribute table, and we'll bring the attribute table over into our viewer, And as we can see, there's this is our parcel ID. It's unique. It's just this one person. But there's two separate parcels in there. Each one has a different soil type. So if we scroll over, we can see that the two different MU symbols right here, CH and DAA. And that's totally cool. What I like to do here is scroll over and try to find my acres. And you can see the deeded acres in this parcel is 10. There's 10 acres in it. But I want to see the number of acres of each soil type. And we can see that the GIS acres, this is GIS calculated acres, not our deeded acres, was 10 acres. What we can do now is we can go to Riparian Soils 01, go down to Edit Features, start editing. And we can right click on GIS acres and we can do a calculate geometry. And what we'll do is, it's using our existing coordinate system. We want to change our units from US square feet to US acres. Hit OK. That's going to give us the calculated acres of the riparian strip for each soil type. 2.2 acres of CH, 0.142 acres of DAA. And that is probably the simplest way I can explain on how to find the acres in a riparian strip. One more thing that I would like to mention in this, I talked about doing the buffer of 120 feet on either side of your soil type, or of your not your soil type, but on either side of your line. If you only wanted it for, like, say, the south side or the north side, there's one more step you can do here. What you can do is you can go to maybe riparian soils, go down to your selection, make sure it's the only selectable layer, and you can select use your select features tool right here and select it. Essentially you could select all the parcels that are in it, and then you can start editing it. So you right click, edit feature, start editing, go to your cut polygons tool, and then what you'll basically want to do is you'll want to trace this your riparian line to cut these polygons down the middle. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to set your snapping up, and you can get to that right here. You see how your snapping toolbar, I have it on. If you shut that off, see how it disappeared up here? But I like to have mine on all the time. So I go down to editor, snapping toolbar, and it's going to put it right up here. What I suggest you do is turn on vertex snapping, and this is the best way to ensure that you're going to get every vertex and snap this correctly. So we'll use a cut polygons tool after this is already selected, and then what we'll do is we'll just go and navigate to where it looks like there is going to be a vertex. There's one here. We'll scroll down. Oh, there's one right here, and there's one here, and it snaps to where the riparian vertex lines are here, and then you get outside of the polygons here, and then you can either double click or you can right click and finish the sketch. And what that's going to do is that's going to split your polygon. So if I only wanted the south side, what I would do then is I'd select the north side of it and I just delete it. Bang, and that's gone. Okay, now you have the area that you actually want right here. And what we can do is we can calculate the GIS acres again. So we'll calculate geometry. Make sure that it is set to US acres. Hit OK. You see that this number changed. Now all of a sudden it's 1.03 acres of CH, but or actually, yeah, that's right. 1.038 acres of CH, and there's still only 0.14 acres of DA because we didn't cut that one. I hope this was helpful to you. This is how you do it. Feel free to practice this as many times as it takes to get it done. But that is how I would calculate the acres of a riparian buffer strip. Now keep in mind, if you're going to do it again for the next go round, say if we wanted to do it another time, what you could do quickly is use the same features that you had. We can create a new set of riparian lines in our riparian lines layer, but what I would do is we definitely want to create a new buffer and a new soils layer, but all that can be put back into our original data sets. If you have any questions, feel free to call or contact me. That would be outstanding. If you like the video, don't be afraid to give it a thumbs up, and good luck with your riparian buffering.